Are you enjoying the Mindset Playground? Well, visit my website at louannehunt.ca. That's louannehunt.ca and find out about all of my guests, my upcoming guests, my past guests, and also sign up for my free Insiders Club. That's where you're going to get information sent to you through email about tips and tricks and all kinds of good stuff about living from the inside out. So I can't wait to see you there on the Mindset Playground. And don't forget to visit my website at louannehunt.ca. Hey everyone, welcome to the Mindset Playground, where you're going to get your daily dose of positivity. And I'm your host, LouAnne Hunt. And I am so excited that you're here today joining me on the playground because I have another amazing author that I'm going to talk to today. And her books are so cool. I really love reading about her books, and I'm excited to talk to her about where she gets her inspiration. My books are basically about the biography, my life story, what's happening in my life at this time. But my guest, Gillian, she actually makes up beautiful characters. And I'm so excited to ask her where this all comes from. So, welcome to the Mindset Playground. Gillian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's nice to be here with you again.
Yes, we did have a Mindset Playground show that we did a while ago, but many things have happened since that show. And I'm so excited to catch up with you again and talk to you about what's next, because isn't that what the world is about right now? What's
Sounds
next?
great. Yes, let's do it.
Yeah. So can I just go back a little bit and just ask you what it was like growing up? Did you always have a story in you? Did you always think about characters and how you could bring them to life?
No, but I do remember as a little girl loving to read, and I remember learning to read, how exciting it was that, you could put letters, make words and sentences and paragraphs and then stories. That was always fascinating. But it wasn't until high school that I started to really think about becoming a writer. And I remember writing a composition in English class about wanting to be a writer because I want to be remembered. That sounds a little full of myself, but yes, I was thinking that. And I actually went to the guidance counselor to talk about what it would I would need to do to become a writer, but it wasn't terribly helpful because you didn't really need to have a degree. And so like nothing really came of it. And then but in high school I also wrote little romances for my girlfriends, at sleepovers, and I would share them, and that was always a big deal. In fact, I still have them in the basement somewhere. Be interesting to go back and read them all. And then it wasn't actually until I was married, had two kids, that I really started thinking about it again. I was home with my second child, and I knew I wanted to do something a little more. Um, and so one day I got an idea for a story, and again, it was a romance, and I just started writing, and that was before we had computers. And so I write everything by hand. So every Thursday night, that was my night to sit down and write. And then I started getting Writer's Digest magazine, and I was reading it and getting, learning more about writing. And there was an article, not an article, but an advertisement about taking a correspondence course in writing. And there was a number of such articles, but there was one with a place called NRI in Washington, D.C., that really got me excited. And we didn't have a lot of money at the time, but Wayne and I got together and took our allowances so we could pay for it. And so I spent the next couple of years studying writing, and I found out that I was good, according to the teachers. I was good at what I was doing. So, and I was really excited. So, but then I sent a chapter to a competition, and I came in like, I don't know, 18 out of 20, and I was just so devastated. And so I so I'm no good at this. I'm not doing this anymore. But it wasn't until years later that I realized that, gee, maybe there was more people than 20. Maybe I was in the top 20. you know? So, but writing kept calling to me. So I always came back to it. And in my 50s, I was looking to do something meaningful going forward. And um, and it became writing. And I'm not myself if I'm not writing. So that's
Those
quite a
stories that
long
you wrote,
answer.
no, that's great. That's exactly what we're looking for. You just answer away.
Okay.
So those writings that you did when you were in high school, the
hmm
romance writings that you
hmm
did you ever publish any of those?
Oh, heck no. I wasn't even thinking of it. I mean, I don't know, 16, 17 years old. Yeah, it didn't even occur to me. I wouldn't even know where I would, send them. But I was just happy to write them, and it was nice to share them with my friends. But that was about as far as it went. So it's been a long process.
So when
So,
you took that course, the correspondence course,
yeah.
did you learn anything about the producing of the books, or the did you learn any of the technical aspects of it, or did you just learn about the styles of writing?
Oh, it was technical. Each lesson we learned something new, like where to get your ideas, how to develop a character, how to do research, even, as far as how to publish. It was everything step by step. So I really got a comprehensive background. So I knew what I was doing. And at first it was very overwhelming. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to put all these things together? But after a while, it's just there, and you just pull on it. And you just write. After once, I think once you've done that, it's just you just keep writing and you just keep working on it, and you know you get better.
Wow. And
hmm
so when you were taking some of the publishing aspects of the course, is that when you got your kind of spark to actually become published? Is that
hmm
no?
Yeah. Well, when I actually started, when I had this idea for my first book, River of the Stick Wavers, well, my first book, I guess it's really my second. Only it's the first one that I got published. So my first one, I can't remember what it was called. Second Chances was my romance that never got published, still sitting in the drawer. But the first one that got published was River of the Stick Wavers. Now, it was kind of a process, like I wrote it. And then at that time, I knew I needed somebody to edit for me. And as it turned out, a little young girl well, not young anymore, she was a young woman by then, but this young woman who I used to babysit had been studying English in university, and she was doing editing. So she edited my first book. How great is that? And because of that, and because of her feedback, I knew that I was ready to publish. And then I went to the next step. And then she gave me some really wonderful advice about finding a publisher. She said, figure out what you need from a publisher and then make a choice from that. And I knew that I would never be able to publish on my own, like on Amazon or anything, because I know nothing about all that technical stuff. That I needed to pay for the education and have someone do it for me. And I wanted a Canadian publisher, which was Friesen Press in British Columbia. And so I contacted them and talked to them, and I had a really good feeling about it. And so I went with them with my first two books. Although things have changed, my third book, someone else helped me to publish, a friend helped me to publish. But I consider that I was paying for the education for those first two books. And Vision Press was wonderful to me, so I have no regrets about it. So. Yeah, so again, it just kind of unfolds. The timing is right. Things happen when they're supposed to.
Right. Very good. That's a great saying for the mindset playground. And that's why you're here. Well, and I think that a lot of this has to do with, timing and intuition and things like that, we crossed paths again since our last
Mm-hmm.
interview. Like this is you've grown so much since the last interview in your writing and in your publishing that it only makes sense that we just kind of take the next step and
Yeah.
we have you back on the show.
Yes,
So,
and it's been amazing. Like they say, it takes 3 books before people start to get to know you, and that is exactly what's happening. When I did um, a literary luncheon at Mrs. Bell's tea room, a lot of people came who already had my book. They just wanted to come and hear me talk, and I thought that was pretty amazing right there. And and I'm just selling more books now and getting my name out there. And I've actually been on television too since I last spoke to you. Um, I'm trying to think of the name of the show. Scribes and Songsters. I don't know if you heard it, out of Windsor. Oh no, Kingsville, out of Kingsville.
so getting back to what you were saying, so yes, the intuition and how everything plays out, and now you're getting a lot more people who are knowing who you are.
Mhm.
And when you had that book launch, you said that you did really well at that book launch and
I
people had
did.
already had your book. So
Mm.
that's great. And what was your talk about? I know it was probably about the book, but did you tell a story or what was it about? Was it how you came to be a 3-time author or what was it about?
Well, it was an interesting process because I really had to dig a little deeper as to why I write. And I did that a little bit in for my previous talk at the Link. I think you were there for that one. But when I finished writing my first book, I really had to look back and see what it was I was trying to do. Like, what was I saying? Because I needed to market it. That's the whole idea. When you write nonfiction, whatever the nonfiction is about, that's the key that you use to market it. But when you write fiction, you have to dig a little deeper. And I realized that my book was about women pushing boundaries. And and that seems to be what all my books are about, without consciously doing it and it was an eye-opening moment because then I realized unconsciously that I was writing about the kind of women because I wanted to be that kind of woman. And so that was really inspiring. And I spoke about how, women are not brought up to lift themselves up. We're always held back, even today, more so in the past, but even today. And we're always putting other people first, and we come second, and we feel selfish because we want something more. And um, so women need to release themselves of that kind of thinking, that they are worthy, that they're amazing, that they can have what they want. And so I tied that in with the story, and then so I'm talking about amazing women and in real life, and tying that in with the characters in my books, and each one is pushing their own specific boundary. And yeah, so that was interesting, and that's important to me, and that's the kind of the woman I want to write about. Um, And another thing that turned out too, and that I came to realize that, when people are writing books, we've heard about the hero's journey, how the hero goes out and he slays the dragon and he, doesn't ask for help and he comes back and he just kind of goes on with his life. But a woman, when she goes out, she is looking for something more and she does ask for help. She'll ask her friends. There's always a bunch of friends available, but she never returns because by then she's ready to move on to something else. And I think that's the woman's journey, that she's always searching for something more. And so that's what I try to, well, I don't consciously try to do that, but that's what I naturally do when I'm writing my books. The women are always looking for something more. She's happy with what she got, but still, it's not quite enough. What about this? And what about that? Just, pushing towards the horizon.
Wow, that's great. And that's so meaningful. And especially with what's going on today, with, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, women trying to find their voice, trying to find
Mm-hmm.
their purpose.
Yes.
And that's so important. So I'm glad that you're
Mm-hmm.
putting that out there. So let's
Yes.
talk about your books now, the actual characters in the book, because I love your stories. I love how you bring these characters to life, and tell us the story about the son who found a woman's picture with her painting on the dock.
Oh, right. Well, my first book, River the Stick Ravers, the main character was Grace Irwin, but she had some friends, and one of them was an artist, and she was 70 years old, and her name was Margaret Harrison. And so when I had finished, my son really knew that book well because he helped me a lot with it. So then one day when my first book was finished, I didn't know what I was going to write about next. And Simon found a picture online of this young girl standing on a dock painting at an easel. And he said, "This is Maggie." I said, "Oh my God." As soon as I saw it, I knew I had to write Maggie's story. So I took 70-year-old Maggie from 1963. I took her back to when she was 18. So it's now 1911. And how did she become an artist? And so we have to put it in Toronto because, my first book was set in Toronto and the French River. And it was kind of interesting because at that time, the group of seven was, alive and well and painting. And I've always loved Tom Thompson, the, famous Canadian artist. And so I put the two of them together and to see what would happen with them. So that was kind of a scary process because, Tom Thompson is a well-known figure. And so I had to really do my research. And I also got help from another, an award-winning writer from Toronto named Don Gilmore helped encourage me to write about an historical piece like that. And after that, I was fine, and I had so much fun writing Tom and Maggie together because they really clashed all the time. So that was a lot of fun. So yeah, that's where Maggie came from. Yeah, it was really an enjoyable book to write. That one was. Mhm,
So when you're writing,
mhm.
do you literally like play the movie in your mind as to, like what Maggie's gonna say, what Tom's gonna say, how their journey is going to, collide or whatever it
How
may
I
be?
wish it were that easy. No, no. Um, that's interesting. Like I usually start out with a character, just to, talk about Maggie, and she wants to be a writer. Okay, so who is Maggie? And oh, first of all, what did I want Maggie to be like? I wanted a really strong character. Grace Irwin was a lot like me, so I wanted somebody completely different in my second book. I wanted somebody strong-minded who would say what she wanted to say, like really out of her time. And so I used as a guide Katharine Hepburn because I just admire her so much. And so yeah, she came to life for me then. And then as I'm doing my research and I find out about the group of seven, Tom Thompson, what was happening in the art world, then I started, oh, this would be interesting to add to this. And then the First World War was going on for that book, so you have to include that. And what was it like in Toronto? So it kind of unfolds. You have to allow it. So I just take those pieces and put them together, and it's always so amazing to me how they actually do fit. But sometimes this means, you have to pause. You have to give time for things to breathe a little bit. When you're unsure of what direction you're going, you have to step back. Sometimes, like I have index cards where I've written a bunch of notes, scenes that I might use. I'll go through them and see if I can get an idea. But yeah, I'm very intuitive when I write, and I like that. I like not knowing how the story is going to end. I can't plan a whole story like a lot of people do. And I'm not a pantser by any means. Am I not a pantser? But I'm also not a planner either. I come with an idea and I just go with it and see where it takes me. And I
So
think
maybe one day you might write the beginning of the story, and then another day you might write something that happens in the middle of the story, but not really connecting the two at the time. Is that
well,
how you write?
sometimes with Gift of the Loon that happened. I started in the middle of the story. I don't know why. I'm trying to remember. I think it was probably to do with the scene with Tom Thompson, and then I had to fill it in. But usually, it, I, I do like one thing leads into another because it's cause and effect. That's what story is about. When something happens, it's going to have an impact, and it's going to impact other people. It's going to impact the situation or how they feel about themselves. So that's how I do it. And sometimes, you have an idea, you want a character to do something, they won't do it. So you have to let that go, and then you have to, well, once you let it go, something comes up, something else, the right idea comes up. So I can't always do what I want. I have to do what the characters want me to sometimes.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, so a lot of things are happening instead of, getting all this stuff and kind of going with it. So yeah, but it's fun. I like it. It's challenging too, don't get me wrong. It's not an easy thing, but
Oh,
it's something I just have to do, you know.
do you ever find that you are focusing on your perfect avatar, the perfect person that you want reading your book? Do you ever find that you're focusing on that person while you're writing,
Yeah,
wondering if that person is,
yeah.
hoping to read it? So you don't
I've
have any
I
outside
write for
influences.
me. I write for me
Oh,
because there's an audience for everything or every type of book that you can put out there. And as you know, there are lots of different genres now, and people are mixing genres. So I think, if I'm going to spend 4 years on a book, I better write for me because that's what's going to keep me going. But,
right.
at the same time, I think I am my audience because I'm writing about women pushing boundaries and women can relate to that. So we're all in the same boat. So, maybe it's sort of connected somehow.
Yeah, that's great. Well,
Hmm.
that's great. So do you ever, so getting back to the mindset part of it, do you ever wake up in the morning and say, I know today is supposed to be my day to write, but it's just not coming to me. Like, what do you do to keep that emotional state high?
Hmm. Well, yeah, there are lots of days when you're sitting down and you don't know what you're going to do. And sometimes you have to talk to yourself, or sometimes um, I will just type whatever's in my head. I like to try this. I want to do that. I just type that out. Sometimes I have to step back. I just have to step back and let my mind work on it, my subconscious, I guess. Sometimes it's based on these stuff that I've just typed up. I'd like to try this, I'd like to try that, but I'm not sure how I'm going to fit that or how I'm going to segue into that. You have to let your story breathe a
Yeah.
little bit. So, yeah, so it depends. But, a lot of times, yes, I'm forcing myself and I have to do it. And sometimes dialogue with the character. Sit down, pretend they're sitting there with you and talk to them. Why aren't you doing this? What do you want? Things like that. So, yeah, there are lots of different things you can do.
Wow, that's great.
Hmm.
And then when it comes time to actually publishing the story, what are some of the life lessons that you've learned from that?
Life lesson. Oh my. From publishing a story. Well, I certainly, my current book, I couldn't afford to keep having Friesen Press, pay them to publish my book. So now I have a group of author friends. I started a group about a year ago, and we get together a few times a year and we talk about what we're doing, and we share tables together at venues, and we tell each other about venues, but we help each other. Like we're beta readers for each other, and um, and this time with my new book, my friend Glenn Muller, who writes mysteries, he offered to help me get my book on Amazon because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. He was a godsend, I can tell you. I mean, a lot of my writer friends were in many ways. It's like a communal event or communal happening to get my book out. However, it was very humbling, having my friends, read and edit my book and then get it out there. And, I really questioned my abilities. And I learned too that, you know, when it comes to being creative, it's not about perfection. It's about creating something, creating a good story. And there is a time when you have to say, I'm done. I can't do any more. I've done everything I possibly can, and you have to let it go and move on. So I learned a lot about that. And I think I became a better writer because of it, because my friends were helping me. So now when I'm being a beta reader for someone else, I notice I'm seeing things that I've picked up, so and that's happening more too. I'm being beta reader for someone else, and I'm much more particular about the books I read for fun. I don't waste my time on something that I don't consider to be good enough.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's okay. I mean, everybody has that's what they do. And, it's kind of like me watching other people's podcast. It has to be it has to be
yes,
somebody
yes,
who I think is amazing or,
yes,
has an amazing
yes,
guest. And I
yes.
find that too. I'm finding little things that I notice in other podcasts as well
Mm-hmm.
and how I would do it differently or
Yes,
and I'm sure they probably do the same with me and that's okay.
yes,
I
yes,
love wonderful feedback. So,
yeah.
but that's great. And I think if we all work together, then, it just we all learn something from it and
Absolutely, yeah.
it's definitely inspiring.
Hmm.
So now I just wanted to ask you about this new book, the latest one
Hmm.
is this is the Healing Stones, correct? The he-
Right.
yes.
Yes.
I love your cover.
Oh, thank you.
And I know that there is a story behind your cover.
Yes.
So I really can't leave this podcast without
Okay.
asking you the
I
story.
have the book here, so everyone else can
Look at
see
it. It's
the
beautiful.
cover.
And I'm going to take that cover because you sent me a picture of it and I'm going to put it like in the podcast so that
Okay.
people can see it.
Yes. Well, my girlfriend, Sue Marantap, she actually does my pedicures, but she's also an artist as well as and self-taught. And one day I was having my pedicure, and we often talk about writing because she's writing a book now too, a mystery. And she said, "Oh, so what are you going to put on the cover of your new book?" I hadn't really thought about it, but in that moment, I knew what I wanted. I wanted a stone circle. I don't know why. I just wanted a stone circle, and of course, it had to be Castle Rig Stone Circle because where my it's a fictional village of Aldridge. It was actually in the Lake District in a place called Keswick under Wentwater in the lakes. And beside Keswick, within walking distance, is a stone circle called Castle Rig Stone Circle. And there's been some odd things that happen there. And at the time, I knew what I wanted. Oh, anyway, I'll just go back. So anyway, so right away we started going on our phones and started looking for pictures. And so we didn't want to copy something, so we took a bit of this and a little bit of that. And she did exactly what I wanted. There wasn't a moment when I was unhappy. It was just absolutely perfect what she had done. And and then, and she added, I don't know if you can see in there, there's orbs that she added, three of them, and they're very significant to the story. Now, at the time that I wanted the stone circle, and I knew I wanted it to be called the Healing Stone, I had no idea how the Healing Stones was going to be integral to Cynthia's healing. I had no
Wow.
idea at all. So again, that's where intuition comes in and how things unfold. I made that come together. I segued it somehow. So yes, so yeah, that's the story behind the cover, and I'm just like thrilled with it. Oh, actually, I should tell you one more thing. It's one thing to get the painting a picture of the painting, but then you have to get somebody to photograph the painting for your cover. And one day, out of the blue, I walked into William Street Cafe, and there was a young woman standing there waiting to get a coffee, and she had a big camera around her. So I'm like, "Are you a photographer?" Duh, of course. And so I told her what I wanted. Like I did, I wanted some author photos, and I needed somebody to take a picture of this painting. And so she did it, and I got her name. Her name is Megan Gray Photography, and she is absolutely amazing. She took a lot of pictures of the painting, and she also took me out to Erie Beach and took a bunch of author photos from me. It was, got the, no, the photo that you've got is the one that she did. So she's really wonderful. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So
Yes.
it's nice that you involve other people,
Yes.
like, like your son is very involved in your
Mm-hmm.
first book. And
Right.
I believe, am I right that your daughter was involved in one of your books as well?
Um,
Or she had
well,
written her
she
own?
does read them. She's pretty busy, but she always reads them, and I get feedback from her. Simon, he was home for a while, so when he was writing himself, writing his own books, and so he had time to help me, which was really wonderful. So he knew my books better than my daughter did, but I think my whole family is pretty supportive, and they're all writers. I think McMally and Simon both writers. O'Malley has a published book. Simon doesn't want to publish. He just likes writing. So, okay. But he's been a huge help to me and all my books.
That's great. Now,
Hmm.
Simon is your son, correct?
Pardon?
Simon is your
Yes.
son?
My son, yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
McMally is my son, a daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I remember in our last show that we did together that you had brought them up as well, how they
Hmm.
were involved and they were writing books, and this is
Yeah.
great. This is
Yeah.
it's a whole family affair.
Well, it's so nice to be able to talk to people. At that time, I didn't have my author group that I could talk to about writing. So it was really nice because they got it. They understood what I was talking about. So it was a way for us to connect, which was great. Hmm.
The one thing that I noticed is the difference between doing, say, the individual story, which is what I've done, the individual stories about me type thing in a book, compared to you writing your novel
Hmm.
about, like, so what are the obvious differences in the two different styles of writing?
The differences. Well, like one is coming from your mind, and one, could coming from your creative side, like you're making up a lot of stuff. But I think there's similarities though as well because you're putting a piece of yourself out there, and my stories there are pieces of people that I know, that I've met, incidents that have happened, places that I've been to, that all come in there. And as I mentioned earlier, when I realized I was writing about strong women or women who push boundaries, that was me, and that was the kind of women I surround myself with, which is so you can't help, um, you know, parts of yourself. So I think there are more similarities than not.
Well, plus when it comes to a publisher
Yes,
and getting
yes,
it published and all
yes,
the
and the
work that goes
marketing,
behind
and
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's not an easy thing. And also that I think there's a matter of courage too. I mean, you're putting a piece of yourself out there and you're exposing yourself in some way, especially when you're writing about yourself. But you're actually exposing yourself too when you write fiction. People knew my first book was me, like the main character was me, and some of the things that happened. So there's no getting away from it. So,
Right. Oh, for
hmm,
sure.
yeah,
So the only thing I want to ask you about now, I mean, we could go on for hours because I love talking to
yes,
you about your work.
yeah. Thank you.
And what I want to ask you about now is what's next? That's my big
Ooh,
thing right now. What's
yes.
next? Now what?
Well. yes, I would love to get started writing my next book, but I've been really busy getting this one out there, doing launches and venues and things like that. And there've been a lot of other things going on. But the problem is I have three ideas. Well, I started out with three ideas of things I wanted to like. Well, I should back up a bit. I started out with one idea until I went to Newfoundland this summer. And I got two other ideas while I was there. And one of them was there's a place in Newfoundland called Lance o' Meadows. And it was a place where the Vikings landed in Newfoundland and where they set up a community. I love history and I adore Vikings. And so, oh, that's really interesting. But also, at that same place in the 1960s, there was an archaeological dig where they discovered about the Viking settlement. And so I was talking to somebody on our trip, and I said, "Oh, I don't know which one to write about." Should have wanted to write about them both at the same time. So, go back and forth in time. So, ooh, that's a really good idea. And then another one was another place there's a place in Newfoundland called Heart's Delight. I think that's right. Anyway, it was a place where back in the late 1800s, they first, the community worked with people in Britain and they met in the middle of the ocean to lay telegraph cables under the ocean.
Okay.
And so they had a telegraph wire in Heart's Delight and they had people working there. Well, when the First World War came along, women were working there because the men were at war. And they did a really good job. And I wondered, what's that like? There were some men still left there who didn't like the fact that women were doing a better job. And the women didn't have as nice a place to stay as the men did. So I thought, gee, that's really interesting. So, and my other story, the one that I had before I went to Newfoundland, I've always really liked the books of Jean Auel. She wrote the Planet the Cave Bear series,
Okay.
where she wrote about a young girl named Ayla who was taken in by probably Neanderthals, and she was the next generation of the Homo sapiens. She was more advanced. Anyway, and I marvel at the research this woman did. So, and I've always been fascinated with cave art and the cave art that they discovered. I would love to see them in France. And so I thought, oh, wouldn't it be interesting? What would it have been like for someone who first discovered the cave paintings? So these archaeologists, or whatever they were at that time, were working at the site and actually find them. So of course there would be a woman on the site, would be one of the first ones to discover these cave paintings. And I've already got a bunch of books, about half a dozen books about, the primitive peoples of the time and the cave art and all of this stuff. So right now I'm torn between the one about the cave paintings and the one about the Vikings. So I don't
Yeah.
know. But again, this is why I need to step back and just let it come to me, which one is pulling me. And right now it's been hard because there's so much going on, so much I need to get off my mind before I can be open to what comes next. So
That's wonderful. You
yeah,
got some exciting things happening. So
really,
now,
yes.
so with your research, it's so exciting that you do your research by going to these places
Hmm.
and actually seeing
Yes,
these things
yes,
so that they come to fruition.
yes, yes,
So it's kind of like
absolutely.
manifesting.
Yes. Yeah, well, this is one of the things I love about the writing life is the places I get to visit, the people I get to meet, the connections I make. It's just amazing. It's all part of it. Um, so yeah, it's wonderful. I just want to mention something. I don't know if we're tying things up, but we haven't actually talked about what this book is about, The Healing Stones.
Well, let's talk about it. We talked
Well,
about how it came to be. We talked about the beautiful cover. So yeah, let's talk
yes.
about it.
Well, again, this is another book that sort of unfolded. intuitively. I meant to write about a young woman named Rachel who is kind of odd. She's a librarian in the 1950s in England in the Lake District. She was a mobile librarian, which I thought was really cool. But she's, she's like 6 feet tall and kind of gangly and kind of awkward. And because she's a librarian, she tends to spout reference stuff all the time because she kind of pulls it into conversation, because she's awkward and she trips over her feet and all this stuff. So I thought she would be an interesting character to write. So I started writing about her. And then I thought, would befriend this odd person? And so I thought, oh, maybe a vicar's wife might, because, I imagine a vicar's wife would be kind, and understanding. And so, and her name is Cynthia, and she moved into town. But then Cynthia started to take over the story, and Rachel became her friend, and they, got into scrapes together and stuff like that. And then, of course, we need, what's going to happen with Cynthia. And her and her husband have just moved into Aldridge. He's a vicar. And they've been married 7, 8 years, and she hasn't been able to give him a child, and she feels really guilty about that because here we are after the Second World War, only a few years passed, and people are going forth and multiplying because that was the thinking of the day. Women were meant to be mothers and all this stuff, but she just kept losing the children, and she feels really guilty about this. And so by moving to Aldridge, they're kind of starting over and hopefully getting away from that grief. But she's dealing with grief of losing the children, and she feels responsible for that. But also, as time goes on, she starts thinking about what next is. And she discovers something about herself. And she's afraid to tell her husband because when she tells him like this secret, she's afraid that he will leave her.
Oh,
So
wow.
she has a lot of things to work out, and the healing stones are going to help her to figure out what she needs to do, and how yeah, she's going to overcome this if she does. So you have to read the
Stay
book to
tuned,
find out.
right? Stay
Yeah.
tuned.
So
So your book
yeah,
is available on Amazon.
it is. Yes.
That's
I,
great
it's
news.
been exciting, yeah, because I've had my cousins in England. They bought copies from Amazon.uk, so that's a really wonderful, and they've taken it with them on vacation. And so my books ended up in Greece. It's kind of
Wow.
exciting. Yeah. So that's
That's
really nice. So
great.
yes, yeah, thanks. Yeah,
Well,
really
we'll make sure
helping.
that we put the link and everything to the
Hmm.
book so that if anybody's interested in checking it out
Yeah. Hmm.
and they can, get it right on Amazon. That's really great that that's
Okay.
available. It's exciting when your book ends up on Amazon.
Yes.
So I guess we do have to end this, but I
Hmm.
always ask my guests for three
Uh,
golden nuggets
oh dear.
to leave the audience with. So, what would your three golden nuggets be? You can make it
Three.
around writing, or you can make
Yeah.
it around being one of the characters in your book,
Okay.
showing your empowerment.
Well, I think right off the top of my head, I would say trust yourself. Trust your own voice, whether it's in writing or in life. I would say be intuitive. Again, sometimes it feels like outwardly you're going in the wrong direction, but trust that your intuition knows best. And finally, I would say surround yourself with author friends who will be really supportive. It's an amazing thing. Like so much has happened this year because I have started this author group. It would be interesting to see where we go from there.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful.
Mm.
So, just as the first time around, I have enjoyed catching up with you
Yeah.
and speaking with you about your writing because I'm a huge fan and
Thank
I
you.
like to write myself. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I love the fact that we have two different types of writings that we do, and
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
yet we can still understand each other. And I love that.
So
So, thanks so much for being on the Mindset Playground. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to catching up with you when you write your next book. Thanks so much, Gillian.
thank you. Pleasure to see you again.
You too.